Morning. Today's adventure is brought to you by the great coastal state of South Carolina. That's right, we are in the deep south today exploring a swamp. Not just any swamp, we are here at Congaree National Park. Like I said, this is a national park. There are 61 of them in the United States. This is my 5th or 6th one that I visited. There are 11 of these national parks east of the Mississippi. Unfortunately, the East Coast just doesn't have the natural topography that could designate it to be called a national park. If you go to the National Park Wikipedia page, you can actually see a bullet list of criteria that are needed to meet in order to be designated a national park. And unfortunately, the areas on the East Coast, we just don't have that many cool places to have national parks. All the West Coast has them all. But there are a few out here, including Congaree National Park. This is an old growth forest in swamplands. These huge cypress trees coming out of the muck here. They say this muck is a good 8 feet deep, which is probably going to be the closest thing I'm ever going to see to quicksand. I'm sure if I fall in there, it's going to be really, really hard to get out. These little spikes come out of the earth. How creepy looking are they? They're actually knuckles. They call them knuckles, growing from the roots of these tall cypress trees. They don't even know what they're used for structurally. It doesn't really add anything or take anything away to the root structure. They just grow like this in the swamp lands. It's pretty creepy looking, actually. But I guess swamps by designation are kind of creepy to begin with. This is the boardwalk trail. This is the most popular trail. It's about 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. As soon as we get off this, we'll get a little bit deeper into the forest and hopefully come across some pretty cool swampy type stuff. I'll check in you guys later. So most of my videos hiking have involved me climbing some type of mountain, going upwards. This won't be that type of video, clearly. Swamps typically don't have mountains in them, but that's fine. It is interesting, when we started the video, I was in swamp area, and we gained maybe just 1 inch or 2 of elevation, and that was enough to go ahead and get us back on dry land. One of the bad things about that is the swamps actually regulate a lot of the growth that happens in these wildernesses. Only certain things that can adapt to swamp life can live here, but when you get to dry land, it opens up a lot more for the species to grow, including these things. On the dry land here, you get a whole bunch of, these are called a switch cane, which is very similar to sugar cane, but it is an invasive species. Nothing you can do about it. It's taken over. You can't stop it. The only way to probably stop it is a whole bunch of rains and this place get flooded and turn into a real swamp. Kill it on out. But that's the nature of things. Got all these super tall trees here, and a lot of them look dead. But even if they're dead, they still serve a very valuable purpose to the woods here. There's who knows how many species living in those dead trees, including insects, small amphibians, birds feed upon those things, so the birds need those dead trees, and then plus you also have a lot of fungus that is needed in order to feed off those trees as well. It's all part of life. Life feeds on life, feeds on life, feeds on life. So although you have a lot of dead, there's still a lot of life teeming in the area. It's pretty neat. It's pretty different than what I'm used to hiking. Hey, you gotta keep your options open. Keep yourself guessing. So, almost done this hike here at this national park. Did about 7 miles. It's real pretty down here. But I gotta be honest with you, I mentioned earlier about the criteria that areas need to meet in order to be designated a national park. And I might have to go back to my hotel room and look into this, because honestly, I'm not quite sure why this is a national park. By no stretch of the imagination is this place bad. It's just, like I said, I've been to 5 or 6 of them. national parks so far, and some of them, you know, some of the big boys like Grand Canyon, Yosemite, and Acadia. And when you leave there, you certainly have an understanding of why that place is set aside as being a national park. Congaree, I'm not so sure why. Definitely a pretty place. Swamps you don't get to see too often. You have your fair share of what I would call tropical type of plants down there, but that makes sense. It reminds me of when I went to Marine Corps boot camp. On the way into Paris Island, you're surrounded by palm trees, and you look around, oh, this place looked nice. Well, it wasn't, but it's very similar to that, where just in the middle of nowhere, bam, you start seeing tropical type plants. But compared these guys up to, like I said, the big boys, Acadia or Yosemite, I'm not quite sure how this falls into those categories. But I've read that there's 61 in the whole country. I read that there's a few of them that are like this. So I'm just going to chalk this one up to that. Still not upset about dedicating a weekend to come down here to cross this one off the list. Certainly much worse ways to spend your weekend. But Congaree, thanks for the good time. Maybe if this was more flooded, it would be a nicer, better experience. But it is what it is. On the bright side, this place was 100% free. So again, not a bad way to spend a cheap weekend crossing another national park off your list. Alright guys, I'm going to be checking out. I'm almost back to the parking lot. Be awesome to each other and do not litter.